I can't even imagine. Have you heard those words and thought, neither can I? But then, it happened. Life took a turn you weren't expecting, and somehow you kept going. You are not alone. Your story matters, and we're here to talk about it. We're two moms, lifelong best friends, and we know what it's like when life throws the unexpected our way. Here we share real stories of struggle, strength, and hope. Because through every challenge, a new path unfolds, and where hardship meets strength, purpose is found.
Welcome to episode 18 of I Can't Even Imagine. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Stephanie. So we just launched a Patreon called Bullshit and Besties, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's where we let it all out. Hilarious stories from growing up together, awkward mom fails, marriage rants, middle school drama, including one episode where I read an actual letter that Victoria wrote me in 7th grade. And yes, it's as embarrassing as it sounds.
Yes, it is.
But it's not just us. Sometimes when we go off on wild tangents with our guests or have those laugh out loud, totally off-topic moments that don't quite fit the main interview, we save them for Patreon too. So if you want to hear the behind the scenes, the bunny trails, the real us, uncensored and unfiltered, that's where you'll find it. And honestly, if you love what we've been building here at I Can't Even Imagine and you want to help keep this going, this is the best way to support us. We're funding everything out of pocket right now, and your support means the world. So head over to Patreon at patreon.com/bullshitandbesties. That's bullshitting without the G. And come hang with us. The link will be in our show notes. So here's a little sneak peek of what you'll hear over there. We both have loved Hanson. Remember Hanson from back in the day?
Yes.
We both
Who
have
doesn't love Hanson?
a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people.
But we have loved
Blasphemous.
Hanson since 1997. So we've gone to a lot of concerts together. So we actually go to their hometown where they have a celebration among fan club members called Hanson Day, and they do like a couple of really intimate shows and stuff. And so we've gone several times now. And, you know, when we're in the crowd, we're like, damn.
My cousin Danielle moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, moved to Oklahoma. She was obsessed with him. She looked like Zach Hanson when she was a kid. It was
great.
So funny. Her whole side of the wall was all Hanson posters. And
Do you see that I'm wearing a Hanson jacket?
You
right
are wearing a Hanson jacket.
I
Stop.
brought your candle that you bought me.
That
now?
is
That smells
great.
like Taylor Hanson up there.
Stop it.
And then she's got Hanson stickers on her
Hanson cup.
laptop.
Oh my God. My cousin would love you.
I brought my
guys.
glass Hanson
Hanson cup.
Yep.
Oh, it's legit.
That's
yeah.
No,
That's
she
when
was
we were in
obsessed.
Tulsa, right there at the Hanson show.
Oh.
That photo.
That one right there.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. No, she was obsessed. She was obsessed with them growing up, and she finally she's met them a few times.
Yeah.
So have we.
They do like odd jobs. Like they've done security for some event she was at. The oldest one, Isaac was working security.
That's
and
sweet.
she met him, and like she has pictures with them, and she's like, I run into them a lot now. I'm
That's
like,
so cool. I mean,
like,
Tulsa,
that's
especially
great.
the downtown area, is really small, like the art district area, which is where their studio is. So they're
Yeah.
out and about walking around and stuff all the
Oh
time.
yeah, like they're like normal people, and
Yeah.
they do like security stuff.
They're
on
not
the
massively
side, and-
famous. That's why.
No,
But they're
yeah.
so incredibly like humble and down to earth.
That's what she said. They're
really
so
cool
nice.
guys.
They own
Yeah.
a tattoo shop out there called Anchor and Rose. My cousin and her husband.
I think I have friends that have gotten tattoos there.
they're very
Hanson
famous.
tattoos
they're
there.
famous.
Really?
The people travel from like all over. Yeah, she owns that that tattoo shop. So she does like a lot of events in the area. Goes to and she runs into these guys a lot now. So
Oh, that's so funny.
And
We've been talking about going while we're there, getting a matching best friend, like Hanson related
oh,
tattoo.
go to Anchor and Rose. Tell my Danielle.
Okay.
She's an artist. Like she freelances. She
That's
draws
cool.
it out. I always knew she was going to be an artist, but I never knew it was going to be a tattoo artist because she was not like that growing
Right.
So
up.
cool.
She loved horses.
Such a
and-
small world.
Yeah, it is. It is. She's very talented though, so definitely I'll let her know.
That's awesome.
Today's episode is a deep dive into religious trauma, cult experiences, and the painful journey of breaking free. Our guest, Michelle Powell, grew up in a deeply religious home, became a Christian worship leader, and even spent time in a cult. Over time, she questioned everything, eventually leaving her faith and facing an abusive marriage that took her 13 years to escape. Hitting rock bottom, she found healing through trauma therapy, psychedelics, and rediscovering spirituality on her own terms. Now a healer and guide, she helps others navigate their own transformations. Let's get into her incredible story. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. Boy, hearing that made me want to cry. I was
Aw.
like, this person sounds interesting. Wait, it's me. So thank you so much. This is a
Absolutely.
cool opportunity. I'm excited. It's weird because being 41 now and looking back at it, it took me decades to realize that my upbringing was not normal. Like, you know, or not common, I should say, like, because so many people were very religious around me. So, like, one of my childhood friends, we all got married young. She married at 18. Her husband was 18. They're still married. She's got 5 or 6 kids. She's birthed them in bathtubs in her living room. They're like, she's making clothes. So I'm like, that was kind of normal for me. So I had to separate so much for so long to realize that most people don't have a lot of the experiences that I had. So, yeah, but I've been in Collier County for 35 years. I was born in Detroit, but they moved me to Marco when I was 4. And so my parents had both been raised Catholic. They knew that they believed in God, but they didn't want to be Catholic. And so, you know, my mom had me in different, you know, churches or you know, daycares or whatever. And then we ended up at a particular church in Naples, actually, New Hope Ministries. It's still there. It's a big church. It's been there forever. I went to that church for what feels like forever. And I really do have a lot of great experiences there. I met friends there. We had community. But what was interesting that even in Sunday school, like when my mom would come to pick me up, they'd be the assistants would be like, "Oh, your daughter dedicated her heart to Jesus today." And my mom would be like, "Yeah, she did that last week too." And now as an adult, I'm like, why was I doing it every week?
Right.
Like, what was wrong with me at 7? You know,
I don't think you understood.
I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to be in the club.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I did all of the things, went to church. I went to a Christian school for a couple years while my parents can afford it. And I never fit in. Like, I was really badly bullied. Like, it was bad. When I was in 3rd grade, I literally ran away from school during recess.
Aw.
Like, a lot of kids explore their bodies when they're little.
Yes.
This is normal.
Right.
I explored my body and was discovered naked with my best friend, another little girl. We were like 7 years old, and more than once. And unfortunately, I was not allowed to talk about it because everybody freaked out.
Right.
And I had nobody to talk to about it. That was actually one of my first like personal trauma things, because since I couldn't talk about it, I developed nightmares. And for about 10 years, I had horrible nightmares. But when I was in 3rd grade, what happened was she went and she told some of the other kids, and all these little kids started telling me that I had crabs and I was a lesbian. I didn't know what crabs was, but I could tell it wasn't good.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't really know
They
either.
didn't either. They're just, kids can be mean, right?
Kids are mean.
Kids are
yeah.
horrible.
And I was on the playground. I'm already too loud. I don't fit in. I'm kind of wild. I tried to catch a hornet in my hands. I didn't know it stung. I was awkward. And so they all stood around me, and I was like sitting on the ground, and I had all these kids around me, like just calling me names, and I just bolted, like ran off, and like 100-year-old playground attendant is trying to chase me, screaming. And I actually ran to my friend's house. Her dad happened to be home for lunch. I was like, I just ran away from school. I gotta call my mom. Can I use the phone? And he was like, okay, lets me in and leaves, which is funny because they wouldn't do that today. Like,
no,
but whatever. Called my mom. She came and she got me, took me home. The principal showed up, tried to get me to go back to school and wanted me to be in trouble. And luckily my mom was like, no, she's not the problem.
Right.
Whatever happened at school is the problem. And she's not coming back. And when she does come back, I'm coming with her and we're going to talk about stuff. So like, there was just a lot of that sort of stuff. But we talk about the religious trauma. When I was 16, so we're already super churchy. Like,
what kind of religion is it? Like what sect?
Non-denominational Christian.
Oh, okay.
So very like a lot of these churches out here. Everybody raised their hands, praise and worship. But what happened was when I was 16, my mom had ovarian cysts. And it was not good, and it was not good prognosis, and there was more to it. I don't always remember. I can't remember. I should ask her all the specific details, but she had scans and all sorts of stuff. My mom dragged our whole family to one of those outdoor tent revivals where like the guys in the flashy suit passing the basket for money, touching people, they fall on the floor. My mom brought our whole, my brother, his wife, my mom, my dad, and then my aunt, and we all made us all sit in the front row. And that guy, Leroy Jenkins, he came, the first one that he came to was my mom. And he's like, you came here to be healed. She's like, yep. And he touched her and she fell. It was really cool. Then though, my dad, he went there with the idea of it's all a scam and I'm going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because then he looked at my dad and was like, started talking to him. And within like 2 minutes, he's like, and I think he told him that. He was like, you came here, like, you didn't believe. He's like, no. He's like, but you believe now, yeah. And like, he touched my dad and he fell. This was not normal. Like, even though we were really churchy, like, my dad was not the kind of person to be like, oh, I felt God, I'm going to fall over. Right. So it blew everybody's mind. Yeah. So like, and there's video of it. And I found it at my mom's, but I haven't watched it, but we do have the video because that guy had a TV show and stuff. So drastically in that moment, it changed the entire trajectory of our whole family. And my parents became friends with a bunch of people there. Like, and they started like, my parents are very social. They're very hospitable. They used to own restaurants, bars, all sorts of stuff. So my parents just like invited everybody over to our house. And they started doing hallelujah parties. That's what we called them, which were once a month. Basically, my parents would invite someone to come and kind of give a message. There was always food, and then there was always prayer. So there was people falling out in the spirit all over my house on the floor, people speaking in tongues, like people prophesying, all this Book of Acts stuff in my living room. And I'm 16, 17, 18. I mean, even before that, I was in church 3 times a week. I'm diagnosed ADHD, but I truly do believe, I know that I am autistic. I've met with a counselor, the one who diagnosed both my kids, because they're both diagnosed autistic. And she straight up told me, she's like, yeah, you are. Because I was like, what my kid's doing is normal. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. But so I was already wired and built differently. So like when they talk about purity culture, when they talk about like being right for Jesus, I took that shit serious. Like I was at the altar at 15 crying my eyes out thinking I'm going to hell because I slept with my boyfriend, whom I loved and wanted to marry. But like, so there was all this sort of mental programming of perfection that was going on in my head already. And then all these miracles, and I'm seeing really cool things happening. And I am being pushed. I have people prophesying over me. I had so many people tell me that I was special and going to do something big with my life that I kind of stopped caring. I was like, yeah, maybe that's what they all say to everybody. That's kind of what I assumed. Because then actually at 18 was the first time I prayed my really big miracle where I cured a stranger of lung cancer. That was really bad. I actually just talked to my mom about that yesterday because I didn't remember that it was lung cancer. And I didn't know that it was stage 4, that there was no hope. I didn't remember any of that. But, and that was just, I was a waitress having a good day. The lady started telling me her stuff. I was like, you want prayer? Just innocent little 18-year-old, like, I believe in God. You want some prayer? That shit worked, changed her life forever. I was like, wow. And that was the sort of stuff I would see all the time. Not just me, just like everybody that was around us. But there were pieces of the Christianity religion that just didn't sit right with me, like the judgmentalness and the divisiveness and this is like, my dad is really old, you guys. He's 88, so give him a little bit of love. But I remember arguing with my dad, and he was like, why, like, blacks and whites couldn't marry or shouldn't marry. And I was like, are you out of your mind? Here's my dad who loves everybody, hospitable, open, and I'm like, how can that be in your brain? And he'd be like, well, there's just stuff you don't understand, Michelle. And I'm like, I don't know. I think you're the one that doesn't understand it, but whatever, Dad. But they were nice to everybody. Like, they were genuinely loving people. They still are. But there was all that like stuff. And when I would ask the really tough questions about the Bible, I would get these generic answers or, well, that's where your faith comes in. And I was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but there was something that didn't sit right for me.
Well, you were also at some point a worship leader, right?
Yeah.
So how old were you at that point?
So what happened was at 16, my mom got healed, and pretty much immediately they started the parties. They were once a month, and then they quickly became once a week. And then they became like 3 times a week. We would have people in our house all the time. But that was quick. At 17, I went to something called Acquire the Fire. And if anybody hears this and knows what that is, oh my gosh, message me. Acquire the Fire by Teen Mania Honor Academy, which were those big rallies for Jesus for teenagers where they would gather like 30,000 kids in like the stadiums and do human videos and all this stuff. And it was very concert-like, and it was very driven at the emotions. And they were promoting a school called the Honor Academy that was in Texas. And it was like a prep school, 1-year program between high school and college. And they would invite you to come live there, stay there, and work with their mission. And so I decided previously, first off, I was put on this earth to work with animals. That was my thing. Well, apparently also to be a healer, but that was my trajectory. Like I had the school picked out, I had plans, I had all this stuff. It was detour. Nope, I'm going to go to Texas and go be with Jesus over there because I feel like I'm supposed to. And I managed to take my parents to an informational meeting and convince them to let me get out of high school early because I didn't fit in. And even my guidance counselor was like, yeah, I think you should probably do that because you don't really need to be here. And I got out of school 6 months early, did a fast track program. It wasn't a GED. It was an actual like fast track program. And I graduated at 17 from high school in November of 2000. What's wild is my husband now today also did that same fast track program, was also in the same graduation class. He did not go to graduation, but he and I both remember seeing each other in the room, but we never talked.
Interesting.
Very, very bizarre.
Yeah, that is bizarre.
So I convinced them. So that was November, right at the end of December or January 1st, right around there. I flew to New Orleans because you had to do a mission trip first. You guys, I did a mission trip in New Orleans. Well, these poor people are trying to have the great like New Year's Eve party. You got 17-year-old me and a bunch of kids walking around with leaflets telling them they need Jesus and to go to hell.
Oh no! And they're
oh
like,
my God! And these people are just trying to have fun at the bar because they want to have a new year. When I look back on that whole experience, I was sleeping in a sleeping bag in the gymnasium. Anyways, I did it, and then I went to Texas at 17, and it is a cult. It was a Christian cult, but I paid money to be there, to work 30 hours a week for the company, to live there in a room with 5 other girls this size. This was the room. We had triple bunk beds. Mm-hmm. I had this much space, and there were so many rules, and I'm not good with rules. But because of my upbringing, I desperately want to be good with rules. So like they're like, you got to get up at 5 a.m. We're doing corporal exercises at 5:30, and everybody's got to be there. And then like your Bible studies, you had to have an accountability partner. There was all these things. There was mandatory fasting, and then at the end of the week, you would check off because it was an honor system. Like, did you do your everyday stuff? And if you didn't, you would have to go see your counselor. And when I tell you, I struggled because integrity meant something to me, but also my sleep did. So I would miss stuff, and I would be like, I have to be honest. And then I'd get called into my guidance counselor, and even she, same thing I've heard my whole life. You know, Michelle, you just kind of don't necessarily, this isn't really for you. You're kind of different. I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to be different. But dude, it was such a cult. And in the back, you want to hear something crazy? In the back, because it was many, many acres out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was like Waco. Like it was the middle of nowhere, no street lights, no nothing. The people who owned and ran the whole program lived across the street, walking distance. In their back, they had it set up. It was very much like a forest. And we did a retreat it was basically a reenactment of what if you were a missionary in a hostile third world country. So you were given either you were a missionary or you were a tribal person. And for I think it was 2 nights there, and you had to go through customs. You had to go, and it was insane because you have got 19 and 20-year-olds who are so unbalanced, but boy, do they love God, that are running this like they are hostile customs agents attacking missionaries trying to smuggle Bibles and chocolate in People got hosed down. People, like, our bags went through. It was fucking wild. And so you make it through customs. I was a missionary. And you get set to wherever your camp is, and then you make contact with the tribal people who had to make up their own language. So, which was a weird kind of, our people had a weird kind of backwards Pig Latin. So actually, at the time, I was able to eventually kind of pick up some of it. So you're trying to talk to these people about Jesus, like pretend, like set up camp, like you're camping outside in the wilderness. Meanwhile, there's customs and government people coming around. You're not talking about God. You're not missionary. You're all like, you had to lie. Like, it was all this really weird stuff. And then I had
I mean, like, that stuff really happens.
It
though.
sure
like,
does.
They took that really serious.
It sure does. Absolutely. But let me tell you, I don't think it was a good idea for me at 19 years old to be willing to die for Jesus in Texas. Like, when I look at the passion, I mean, I really was. Man, I was so sold. I was one of those people, they would preach like spiritual warfare, armies of God. And that's what I had just left in my house, because I grew up around spiritual warfare. People, before I got there, with all this stuff happening in my living room, we were casting out demons all the time. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a life that was actually normal for demons, and I was never scared, and whatever. So it was like, okay, so now I'm here doing it for pretend, like I'm being prepared for something, right? And the psychological games you're playing with kids that don't know how to think. Mm-hmm. I had this guy pushing me. He was playing the role of a customs or like a government person, pushing me about God. And I was saying, nope, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing. We're just here for whatever humanitarian thing we're doing. And then at the end, he was like, what if this was your one chance to save my life? And I'm like, dude, what if you're going to kill me? I'm like, I don't know. This is crazy. And then later that night, I got kidnapped.
Wow.
Yeah, by a tribe from another place. I don't know. Somebody just grabbed me and goes, you're kidnapped. Come with me. And I just went. I should have fought, but I was just like, okay. So I ended up on the other side of the hill. I ended up at a mock ritual that some of the kids had put together that literally looked like a demonic kind of sacrificial sort of like thing. It was like Lord of the Flies shit. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, I'm thinking
and
like Hunger Games.
The
kind of
most
stuff
grown
going
up
on in my
person
head.
was like 24 years old.
It's a little too intense for young people.
Somebody actually stood up at the thing and was like, you guys, I know that this is for pretend, but this is a little too much.
Right.
And I don't remember. Somehow I ended up back at my place where I was kidnapped. Then somebody rescued me and I ended up back with my people. And I don't even remember all the rest. I know that I slept in a tent outside. It was camping. It was cold. It was on the ground. That wasn't great. The other really interesting thing that happened in my time there was, why I don't know, but at 17 years old, I always thought, and I'm not athletic. Mm-hmm. But I always thought what the Navy SEALs do looked like something I would want to try. Well, at that school, they had a weekend called ESOL, Emotionally Stretching Opportunity of a Lifetime. I still remember it. Look at that. And I signed up for it, and it was a program put together by a ex-Navy SEAL person where they would basically put you through Navy SEAL style training for about 36 hours, because all of this was supposed to help our spiritual growth and put down the flesh. And, you don't want your body to be in charge. And because remember, we were on mandatory fasting also. We had fasted 24 hours, I think it was 24 hours once a month, plus 3 days like every other month. And it was all like regulated and enforced. And so I signed up for ESOL. We stood outside with no concept of time for hours. They ran us through the woods, the burpees, the exercises, people screaming and yelling at you, calling you names, all this shit at the Jesus camp.
That's such a weird mix to me.
Oh my God, was it ever? And so what ended up was kind of the make or break thing for me was it's the middle of the night. You don't know what time it is. You're already tired. You haven't eaten. You haven't slept. I wear glasses. We're running downhill through like this mud thing to get to a lake. And there's a key in a bucket in the middle of the lake that we got to get while people are shooting us with paintballs.
Oh, geez.
So we're like downhill running in the dark. I can't see. There's mud on my glasses. People are shooting me with paintballs. We get in the water. It's like up to your neck. We're like, get the key. We get back up. More people shooting at us. At some point I fell and like I swear I broke my foot. And I went up to the guy who was the leader. Now he had joined us. His name was David Haas. And I liked this guy. He had charisma. He was very, very interesting. And now he was a normal grown-up. So he was, I don't know. He was probably in his 30s at the time, 40s. I honestly don't know. But I went up to him. He went by the Grandmaster Council. I don't know. He had some long name. I was like, I think I broke my finger. He's like, can you move it? I'm like,
I thought you said foot.
No, that was later. Sorry. I meant finger. This was my finger. This was my finger. I think it was like this finger. And he said, can you move it? I said, barely. He's like, you're fine. Get in line. And so I was like, okay, this sucks. They let us go to bed for like 15 minutes. They woke us back up. And at some point, I just went and rang the bell. I was like, I'm glad I tried it. I did it.
Is that out. Like I'm out? Like when you ring the bell? Yeah. Like I can't do this anymore?
And what was funny is like as soon as I rang the bell, I'm out. And you leave your team. So your team's like, no. And I'm like, screw you guys. This sucks. Like I'm going to bed. So like I ring the bell. And then one of the ladies who had been yelling at me now comes up to me. Are you okay? Do you need to talk? I'm like, fuck you. And I was like, no, I'm good. But so it was like that whole switch. And that shit is not good for your brain. It's not at that age, not when you cannot really understand. That's why they do it to the military. It's brainwashing. Right. It's indoctrination. It serves a purpose. But I tried it. The kids that made it, the handful of kids that made it the whole time, their skin was literally red because of the red clay over there for days. And meanwhile, I am there on donations from loved ones and family and friends. So I'm sending a monthly newsletter. My poor grandma gets this letter and I talk about it. And I remember her calling me all upset. Michelle, you're not supposed to be there. That is a cult. You should not be there. I'm like, no, this is great. I love it here. Like I did that by choice. I loved some of it. I only lasted 6 months. It was a 1-year program. By 6 months, all the money ran out. I got sick and I wasn't getting better, which I really believe was God being like, you got to go home.
Right.
Like,
right.
He wanted to come. We came, come home. And so my parents flew me back home, but my so-called sisters were like adamant praying against. They're like, we're praying you don't leave. And I would say, why don't you pray that God's will be done? Why don't you pray that, whatever God wants happens? No. Because God wants you to be here because you signed a contract.
Why don't they pray for you to get better?
Or that even. No.
So for you
I
to
had
be
mono.
healed.
They all thought I kissed somebody. And I was teased about that too. I was like, I'm not. Because even while I was there, I did the best I could to fit in. But by like those last 2 months, I was sleeping on a mattress I found in the closet because I didn't want to be in my room. And I was leaving with kids that I met at a church. They were still church kids, but like from the town, like 30, 40 minutes away in Tyler, Texas. And so like, because I just never fit a hard mold. But by my birthday in June, I made it back home. And I was so disillusioned by life. I went to the beach with my friends. And I cried because girls were wearing bikinis, because people were enjoying normal things in life. And I was like, you guys, is this a spiritual war? The souls, we got to save the souls. Jesus, don't they know Jesus loves them, wants to save them from hell? And I was really upset about it. And I was really upset about the bikinis because how could they? Then I got a job in a restaurant, which was the restaurant where I ended up doing that prayer and healing that lady. And I met the absolute worst wrong person and married him. So that started the whole thing. And then I jumped back in. You were asking me about worship leader. When I got home, I took on the role of worship leader in my parents' church. And at one point, we had 40 and 50 people at my parents' house. We had Saturday night service. We had Wednesday night Bible study. We had every other Friday night. We would do these praise and worship things where I would just basically lead everybody and we would sing and for like an hour or whatever, sing and pray. We were always singing and praying. And then Monday nights we would have prayer meeting for the leadership. Oh, and then another thing that happened while I was at church, and this was shortly after I had gotten married, my childhood dog, during one of the services, my dog got hit and killed.
Oh,
so, and you can hear the recording because you can hear somebody knock on the door. And what sucked, this changed my life forever. Spencer was the greatest, coolest dog. He never went in the street. For whatever reason, he chased a truck. When me and my family got to him, he wasn't quite dead yet, but he was, moving. And I'm sorry, what does my entire family do for a living now? Healing? We need to pray for Spencer. And my parents said, no, we got to take him to the hospital right now. And that fucking blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, what? Doesn't this whole family believe in God more than anything else? Isn't God the healer? Like, what? When I tell you that shook me to my core and drastically changed my life, because I could not believe that all the things that I had seen, all the miracles, that in that moment, there's our dog laying there. It'll take us 30 seconds. Let's pray for the dog. No, we got to take him right now. And we didn't pray. And they took him and he was dead. They came back and they buried him.
It is my understanding that animals don't have souls. Could that have something to do with it?
I don't believe that at all.
No. I know you're an animal person.
Well, no, it's not just that. But so my understanding of soul is a little bit different probably than most people.
But even back then?
No. But even back then, I think that I understood that there was more to it. Mm-hmm. Like, that was one of the things when people would have those arguments and they would say animals don't go to heaven. I'd be like, I think you guys don't understand. That was just, I always had this feeling that people try to nail down and understand things that they just can't.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
And so for me, I was like, it never made sense and it never sat right.
Right.
So no, even then, I don't think that was what motivated them. I think in that moment they were like, we need an ER doctor more than we need a prayer. I honestly do, which is kind of sucked for me because.
But I also think in being in their shoes at that time, that was a logical thing to do.
It was, absolutely. Nothing in my family was ever logical. So why
that's why it didn't make sense to you at the time.
Yeah. They all believed that Jesus made Lazarus rise from the dead. So I was like, if he's not quite dead yet, why can't we wake the dog up? But whatever. It was a part of the journey that was meant to happen. So, but we had the worship leader, we had everything. And then what ended up happening was somewhere in my early 20s, my parents decided that they wanted to open a formal church. Because it was a lot of wear and tear on our house. Mm-hmm. Personally, I still believe to this day we were never meant to get a church. It was so anointed and blessed in my parents' house on Saturday nights. It was like people were tired of the normal Sunday morning church. We had something different. We had something special. But no, they decided they wanted it to be different. We got the building. We had a church for 3 years. It was never the same. It was never the same. Like we never had as many people as we did in the living room. I mean, it was great. We had the children's church. We had all the stuff. And my brother being in electronics and production, video production, marketing, all this stuff since he was like 13 himself. Like we had all the top-notch equipment. Like we had the TVs and it was cool. Like, and on that, I was a worship leader there and I would run events there. Actually, my whole family left on a mission trip and left me in charge to run the whole service for all of, I don't know, like 8 or 11 people. And so I had to run the machine, run up front and sing, turn the machine off. Then run back up, give a message, like then pray for the people. That I was like, why are we here? I should have got the day off, but we did all the stuff. And then at some point, and I had married Mr. Awful during this time as well, but at some point, all of my questions about faith, and especially when it comes to like homosexuality and stuff, because here I was knowing that I was born bi and having all of the experiences to go by that. And my family, we could never talk about that. Right. So like, so many different things didn't make sense to me about the Bible and nobody could give me an answer. And eventually I was like, it just doesn't work for me. And then when I went to college, I took a religion class and so many other things made sense to me that one day I just told my parents, I said, if you guys make me get up there and sing again, I'm going to tell everybody I don't believe in Jesus. And they said, you are relieved from your duties. Have a good day. Thank you. And so that was my end from the church. I was probably around 24. And then that led me into I would spend about 10 years kind of deconstructing. I was an atheist for a long time, agnostic, all that sort of stuff. But
wow.
How did you go from that upbringing and the involvement and the cult and all of the things then to all of a sudden say, I'm an atheist? What was that like? Just because you weren't like understanding because of like the sexuality stuff and certain things didn't make sense, or was there like a catalyst, like you were just like flat out I don't believe anymore?
Spencer dying was a huge catalyst.
Okay.
Like that whole, we're not going to pray for the dog, we're going to go to ER, shook me so much that it broke me. Like it broke my faith in a way that nothing else ever had. And so,
did you ever explain that to your parents?
I'm sure I did at some point. You know, we talked a lot about a lot.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't even remember now. I'm sure I did. Somewhere in my life, I had the idea that life starts after I get married. So for as far back as I can remember, I was looking to get married. I was always had a boyfriend, and whoever he was, I was madly in love with him, and I wanted to marry him. And I really felt like life starts after you get married. So I was 18 when I met my first husband. He was 6 years older. He is a sociopath and a narcissist and a predator. And I don't say that just because he was mean to me. And I didn't realize it until I was away from it. And so we met at the restaurant. I was 6 months out of the cult, living in the super purity church. Everything's got to be perfect. And we went on a couple dates. And by the third date, he would curl up on the floor and cry, like intensely. And I don't know what's happening. I remember when he walked me to the door after that third date, he was like, I understand if you never want to see me again, like if you just want to walk away, you know, I get it. I should have took that out. But what did I think? I said, oh no,
I can
me
help
and
him.
Jesus, we're going to love him to freedom, whatever he needs. And that entire relationship from the beginning was fucked. I mean, here I am, 18, by our 2 weeks of dating, he is telling me that he wants to marry me. And of course, he found the right girl because I'm looking to marry anybody. So, and he's older. He's got his own place. He's stable. He's got a good job. He looks great on paper. Like, especially to like my parents or people who like the traditional thing, very self-sufficient. And so we actually went to my parents and they were like, no, she's too young, whatever. The arrangement was made that we could get engaged on my 19th birthday and we could get married, but we had to have been together for at least a year before we got married. Between the time from when we started dating to the time when we married, there was so much psychological trauma that is it's almost impossible to try to explain it to people unless you have truly lived with a sociopath or a narcissist or someone who really uses gaslighting, manipulation, blame shifting, all of these things to confuse, to destabilize, to psychologically fuck up. And he was smarter than me and he was educated and he fucking knew what he was doing. And I didn't really realize that until way later.
We've started to have more conversations with women who have been in these types of relationships, and it's always like this. It's always the same. It's always the same story.
I was a fucking mark. When I think about that, I'm like, oh my God, what?
It's the love bombing. It's this, like going way too quickly in the relationship. You know, all of those are huge red flags.
Even, and this is really deeply personal, but even by like, if you take a 19-year-old girl who's excited and happy and all about life and all this stuff, shortly after the time we were married, but like by the time I was 20, like my girly parts dry as the Sahara Desert. Like I'd hated sex because he used sex against me. You want your audience to hear something I bet they've never heard before. He used to make me shit on him.
What?
Oh my God, I've always wanted to meet somebody.
Here you go, right here.
Who's in this situation. Why?
What I believe it was, as a grown-up now looking back on it, I really believe that he got pleasure from my pain and discomfort. And what actually happened was he was not a virgin. And so he had such a fucked up relationship with sex, with love. He had no empathy. He did not feel emotions. So like it was one of the things that I used to complain about it through our marriage the whole time is that I never felt love through his eyes. So like my husband now, we could fight all day long. I can see his love.
Right.
No matter what, I know that man loves me to the end of the earth.
So how did this man he even wanted to get married? Like, what?
Oh
was,
yeah, no,
like,
I was his everything. He'd never felt like this before. I love you. I've never loved anyone before. You're it for me. You know, I'm
It's
ready.
all just words. They're
It's-
great words to
right.
get a
Oh,
young
oh,
girl
yeah.
married, to
who
marry you.
has no experience of life and has been so sheltered and so protected. I mean, I'd never done a drug. I mean, I had a wine cooler at a friend's house and somebody reported me to the youth pastor and I had to have a meeting about it.
Right.
So like I was watched, protected, and I wanted to be good. So I rarely did something that I
Right.
thought was off band, off base or whatever. So I believed people. So I believed everything he said to me. And I didn't know he wasn't a virgin until months later, because he's having nightmares. And he is waking up screaming. And when I ask him what it is, it's his dreams are that I've had having sex with other people. So here I am, 19. My soon-to-be husband is having nightmares that I'm having sex with other people. I'm in a religion that tells me that you're not supposed to have sex before marriage because you're dragging all those people you've had with you down the altar. And all of the purity culture bullshit that fucks up women's ability to think critically or confidently. It strips us of our power. Oh, and he was not a religious person, but I'll tell you, he would fake it till it's best he could because he saw what he had and he knew how to use it against me.
Right.
And he did, because he didn't believe the Bible. But I'll tell you, more than once, he would tell me, aren't wives supposed to honor their husbands?
So did he tell your parents that he was a Christian? Because would your parents approve of you marrying somebody who wasn't a Christian?
They didn't approve. I was doing what I wanted anyways.
Okay, at that
point. So they were either on board or not. Luckily, they did get on board, and he was painted as a half-assed Catholic.
Okay.
That was the Christian. That was the religious, because he had gone to Catholic school, all that stuff, blah 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 blah. So that was how he presented as a Catholic. Yeah. And so nobody wanted me to marry him. Everybody told me, this is not right. You're unequally yoked, whatever. Oh, no, but I love him so much. Oh, I love him so much. Yeah. Months into our relationship, when I found out he was not a virgin and that this was part of the connection to all of the shit that was happening in his subconscious. And then he blamed me because I made him have sex with me at 19. Okay. I was blamed for everything. Always. So it was just whatever. I actually became responsible for waking him up when he would have nightmares. I still don't sleep today because I spent most of my life.
Right.
First off, I have ADHD. I'm left-handed. I'm a Gemini. There's a lot going on to begin with from the baseline. Then you put me into a life where I am now responsible for somebody else's sleep. So I never slept, and if he had any kind of a reaction, I would wake him up. And then if he went, like, especially after we got married, I remember going, we all went out with some people like the day before we got married. And I remember like being like, if anybody knew what our relationship was like, no one would come to the wedding. Also, he cut me off from all my friends.
That's another one that pops up a lot.
I was a religious person, so I hugged everybody.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to hug men. I had to tell men that were old, like my dad's age, that I had known my whole life, I'm sorry, I cannot hug you anymore. My husband doesn't like it. And like it was all sorts of. My best friend, when I met my first husband, my best friend, one of them was a guy, and we spent all kinds of times together. We grew up together. I wasn't allowed to see him anymore. And when it came time to have my wedding, I had, I think, one table of like 8 people, 4 friends, 4 people from work. The other 40 or 50 people that were there were all my parents' friends and family. Like, and his family, he had like the 5 people. That was it. They didn't invite a single soul. Talk about weird fucking shit. But I'll tell you, I had a beautiful wedding that my parents went into debt for. I had the beautiful dress. It was at the Strand. It was gorgeous. I look amazing, cute, young, beautiful, blushing. I got everything I wanted, which has always been the case in my life. I look at my life all the time and I'm like, look. While my kids are screaming at each other, me and my husband are trying to get along. I'm like, look at you, Michelle. You got everything you ever wanted. So I try now to be more careful about what I want. But yeah, and it was bad. We went to counseling. We found a Christian counselor that actually sided with him. So that
Did
was
you
fun.
tell the Christian counselor about the pooping on him? Because I've
No.
got to go back
let's
to
go
that
back
real
to that.
quick
Yes,
because
no, that's good.
I am fascinated with why somebody would want this to on them.
So what would happen is there would go, also, I should also point out we were not allowed to watch porn.
Okay.
And because I had curiosity, so like at 19, I told him I watched some porn. He was ready to divorce me. We had only been married 6 months. He lost his fucking mind. It was like I murdered somebody. It was, talk about the guilt and the shame. Right. And he would then not talk to me for weeks and all this other shit. And he started saying this stuff like, I want you to poop on me. I'm like, that sounds gross, awful, and difficult and uncomfortable.
Yeah, because like I don't know about you, but I just can't poop on command. Like it happens when it happens. It's
not easy, which is why if the girls that do it on OnlyFans, kudos to them, because that is not an easy thing to do. But it is a fetish. I found that out. I'm like,
yeah,
great,
I know
whatever,
it's a fetish. I'm just fascinated as to where does it come from.
I really believe.
And then like the logistics of it all.
What's the psychological thing that led to wanting that?
Right, because it's an excrement. I mean, it is not healthy. You wash your hands after you use the bathroom to not spread germs to yourself and others. And now we're going to put this in a sexual context. I just don't, and like I'm all for people and their kinks. Do what you got to do, but like why?
Mm-hmm. So I can't speak for everybody, but I really would be 100% believe he got off on my discomfort because I voiced the fact that I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It definitely does not turn me on.
No.
It definitely does not help. He would tell me that it was better to do for your husband to show love than to not do. So meaning that it was more significant that I do the thing that shows him love than him not ask me to do the thing that I don't want to do. And he would tell me this for weeks and weeks at a time. And then he would say, now I feel guilty. I shouldn't have told you that. Now you make me feel like I'm wrong for wanting that, to do that thing. Just something
I think you need to
my
explore
wife.
This in therapy because this is an interesting ask,
There was so much mental manipulation there that it was.
I don't blame you for, I mean, you're a kid and you've been already brainwashed so much in your life to just do what others want you to do for the sake of, because this is the way it's supposed to be done.
You're a people pleaser.
So you guys want to hear some wild crazy? Okay, wild crazy. Is this even, okay? I hope y'all are watching the time. One time, because we did it, I think twice, where he convinced me to do it, and it was always in the walk-in shower. It was the whole thing.
Were you like, I've had my coffee, now it's time? Like, was it time?
I had to plan accordingly. I had to wait. It was the whole thing.
Okay. That was just my curiosity.
And he also had me pee on him a few times.
Sure.
So what I did one time, I swear to God, this is going to sound batshit crazy. I hope my parents never listen to this. I said, oh, you know what? I want you to pee on me. I think that sounds great. It's my turn to try it. And he was like, wait, what? I don't really want to. And I was like, no, come on. I've done this shit for you. Like, why not? And he was like, he didn't want to. And we had that conversation so many times about it's more important to do for your spouse, to show them love the way they receive love. So I fucking flipped it on him. And I said, and I did the whole thing because I didn't want that. Never in my life have I ever thought that sounds good. But I wanted to see what happened.
Right.
And he did. So I had that experience, and he didn't ask me again for a long time. Actually, what happened was a few years later, he switched his words, and it became no longer better to ask than to not ask. The other flip side of it is that when I tell you he watched what I dressed, if I bent over and I showed midriff, I heard about it like I was a fucking whore.
Wow.
If I cast judgment on other people to try to say what I thought he wanted to hear, then he would switch it. We went to Blockbuster once, and there was like a half kind of like soft porn cover that caught my eyes, and I got chastised because I was looking at it. All this shit. Fast forward 5-6 years later into our marriage, and he approaches me and says that he would like to watch porn with me. I was like, I'm sorry, this is a trick. I actually called my best friend and I said, I think it's a trick. She's like, don't do it, dude. He flipped everything on me. He's a fucking psycho.
It would be different if he came to you and was like, listen, I've been thinking a lot about it, and it makes sense that maybe we can find some new moves this way, and I'm really sorry that I freaked out. I was in a different place. You know what I mean? It would sit better rather than it just be like almost forget everything that I said before without acknowledging that he's asking you to forget everything that was said before.
And there wasn't
That's
even
weird.
it was really weird. That day lives in infamy in my head because it is just crazy.
Well, that's what I find a lot. Like, what fascinates me about your story and why I want to hear so much about like your religious trauma and your cult experiences, because I've watched a lot of documentaries about cults and things. And one thing that when people start to kind of see the light while they've been brainwashed for so long in a cult and or in a marriage or whatever it may be in their life, that all of a sudden like the leaders will start to kind of backpedal on things that were like not okay from the beginning. This, we're not doing this, this, and this, and this is a sin. But then years later, it's like, well, it's not that bad. And they're like, wait a minute, what? And that's the beginning of the unraveling for people when they're starting to see the truth or see a little bit more clearly. And I bet that was in your marriage, some of the things that you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck?
It really was.
Yeah.
It really, it was pivotal. It really was. Meanwhile, it was right around the same time where I had been a few years since I had left the church. And so when you were asking about like, how do you walk away from your faith and stuff, like, so all of this is going on and he does not believe. So he would use religion to put me in my place. But when we would have a good day or things were fine and we would talk about stuff, he was very, very much an atheist. And so he would talk to me about things in a very different, more scientific and very just a different way. And so he did promote me to think differently, because it was different than what I was taught. It wasn't woo-woo. It was, yeah, but. And he actually, though, had convinced me that what I felt in my body, when you get the chills on the back of your neck and you feel something, or when all your hair raises or whatever, he had convinced me that that was nothing spiritual, that was just a physiological reaction to a stimulus, but it was nothing special, significant, or interesting. Fast forward to now, that's bullshit, because I can feel energy in my entire body, and that shit is part of it. So, but he made me question everything about everything. And I can remember feeling stupid at times, and I would say something like, I'm just not smart. And the way in which he would look at me was like, oh no, you're really smart. Was almost like he knew more than I knew what he had, and I didn't know what I was. And what was really crazy is if you bring it all the way up to the very, very end, because I had to run away and disappear. I had to vanish because I tried to leave him over and over and over. Within a few months of marriage, I had my brother come at like 5 a.m. after he went to work and like carry my bed out and all this stuff. If he could get in front of me, he could convince me to come back. And I knew it, but I couldn't get away from him. So at the very end, because I left around Christmas 2014, he had been asking me, he wanted a video recording of me pooping.
Again.
Yeah.
It's back again.
Oh yeah. And I had been free of those requests for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I had I don't like it, whatever. I'd flipped it on him, whatever. And he kept asking. I'm like, I don't want to. I don't like this. He said, this is what I want for Christmas, my birthday. You don't have to give me anything else ever. This is the one thing that I want. And I was like, are you out? What is I fucking did it. Like
Good for you,
2
though.
days before I ended up vanishing. Here's your Christmas gift, buddy. There you go.
Like, what's hot about that? I don't understand. Like, was it a close-up or was it you
girl,
on the toilet?
It was a close-up.
That's so funny. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Oh.
He probably still watches it.
You know what sucks is I wanted, because he had some shit, and I wanted it back in the divorce, and I knew I could never get it.
You should have put that in your divorce decree.
I tried. I tried. But there was no way to prove it. He's like, I don't have any videos, and how could I prove it? And I was already in another state. There was a lot.
Sitting with the lawyers in mediation, and you're like, and I want the sheet set that my parents got us, and I want the dishes, and I want that video I sent to you of me taking a dump, like having it on paper. Oh my God, that'd be great.
I know. Trust me.
Lawyers have probably heard it all, but that one would probably be Oh, it'd be great.
I don't know that they'd have heard that one.
That's
that was kind
so
of special.
funny.
How did you finally break free from him?
So we ended up moving to Tennessee.
Who's we?
Me and my first husband.
Okay.
And in the end of 2012, and I actually I picked up the house, like it was lovely up there, but all of a sudden I was away from all of my family, my work, my friends, and it fast tracked me seeing things as they were, with no facade, with no rose colored glasses.
Like she didn't have to pretend for anybody else.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm with this guy and he really is crazy. And we had been to counseling, we had read books, because he was always telling me he's trying, right? These men love to say, I'm trying, I'm doing the best I can. So a couple of things happened, but I met someone at work whom I had an attraction to. Now, this was not something I would ever give the lighter day. When I wasn't even allowed to ride in the car with my male boss. So like I was really restricted. But now all of a sudden I'm in Tennessee with nobody but asshole looking at my life saying either he's going to kill me, because I actually walked in one day with him holding the gun because he had a gun and he said it was for me, just in case, or he was going to kill himself. So I was like, either he's going to kill me or I'm going to kill myself, because I cannot live like this. And I got an eye for this guy and he's got an eye for me. And I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And I had a sit down business meeting with this gentleman from work, and we put it all out on the table. You're married, I'm married, you got kids, I don't have kids, but we're not getting together. We're not leaving our spouses. We hate our lives. And my first husband wanted me to do this nasty ass shit for him. I liked stuff that was physically rough, and he would not do a thing for me. None of the things that I enjoyed or wanted to explore were allowed.
Right.
When I met this guy at work, and it was really very much a fuck it moment, and what I did is I threw every rule and every moral out the window. All of my beliefs. I threw it to the ground. I burned Michelle Augustine down. I said, I'm going to be a whore. I'm going to fuck a married man. So much so, I became his babysitter. I became friends with his wife. He wild ass something out of a movie, fucked me on their kitchen table, and later on I came over for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh my God.
When I tell you I was the villain,
Yeah.
but for myself, I was saving my life, because that man was the first person to show me what it was like to be loved as an adult woman.
Right. Not a romantic love, but like just somebody to appreciate you.
No, it was love.
Okay.
Like it was love. Like I will still say, it's been 10 years and I'll be like, he loved me. In fact, if he saw me today, he'd probably want to run away with me. But because I'm a kick-ass soul.
Right.
And so like when I get to actually connect with people, they're like, hey, she's kick-ass. And in the moment, we were exactly what each other needed.
Right.
And so I did so many things I would never have dreamed that I would have done. And lying all the time. I was not a liar. Dude, I was lying. I was at the hotel. I'm like this. I was lying to my husband for everything, because nothing mattered anymore.
Yeah.
And when B looked at me, that's all I'll say, just B, I could see the love in the eyes that I didn't have at home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I know this shit exists. Like this might not be the end for us, but this and treated me with respect. And we went out and we had fun social dates, and like all of the pieces were there. And we had a wild romantic love affair for a year, like out of a storybook, like swimming in the lake, and like just all of these cool things. And we went and we watched 50 Shades of Grey together, and we reenacted the scenes. I'm not kidding. He strung me up in his garage. Like it was like so much fun role playing, being allowed. And I had been dry sexually, like the Sahara Desert, for a literal decade. I wish I was embellishing. I'm not. That first encounter with him, I was embarrassed because my body was literally leaking. Like just, right. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like touch me with a feather and I'm like, something is happening. And when everything that ended, because
it's like everything that was bottled up in you for so long just came out in this explosive all at once.
Yes. It sure did.
Wow.
And I had to like kill everything I thought about morality and right and wrong, which was hard because integrity mattered.
Right.
And now I am like a walking, talking, this not what the world would say is integrity. I hear people say all the time, like how there's no justification for an affair ever. And I'm like, don't judge things you've not experienced. There's always more to the story, man. Life is fucking complicated.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
a lot
see
of nuance.
I don't see that I could be sitting here if I didn't have that affair.
Yeah, it's
Because
never black and white.
I tried to leave. I tried all the other things. And so what happened was B and I parted ways. We had worked together. 2 days later, I lost the job, and I almost feel like I volunteer lost the job. Something happened. I worked at a restaurant, and a guest walked out without paying, and I didn't argue my good. I was like, if you want to fire me for it, just fire me for it. I don't care. And they did. And like, when I got home, I was like, it's right before Christmas. I asked my husband, can I go home to visit family? Because back here in Florida, I was an active volunteer with a wildlife organization. And really, that was where I wanted to come back to, because the animals was always a driving thing for my life. I was raising tigers, lions, all sorts of stuff. I left that when I moved to Tennessee. So even the year and a half I lived in Tennessee, I came back and forth several times. So he was like, okay. So I packed up my 2 dogs to come to Florida for a 2-week vacation, and I was going to come back before Christmas. When I got to Florida, the first thing I did was text my ex-boyfriend from back when I was 17, just before I went to the cult. He's been a lifetime family friend. He is still a friend. He's like 9 years older than me. He's my brother's best friend. When I say good man, I mean loves his mama, takes care of his family. He's a single dad. He's got a good job. Like, he's engineer. Like, he's beautiful, good man. And we weren't allowed to be friends because even though he was really close with our whole family, because of my husband, I had to kick poor Tom out of my whole family's life. They were all mad at me.
Yeah.
So I text him and I'm like, hey, I want to take you and your son to my wildlife farm. If I had not had that affair, I would have never texted him, because that was out of character. I didn't talk to him. I wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
We ended up texting for like 12 hours. And he is like, Michelle, I will pay for your divorce. I will protect you. I will save your life. Whatever you need. And he fucking did. And so, because I'm a mess and scared that husband number one is going to come looking for me when he finds out. And all of a sudden, I remember one day I was at the farm, so I'm taking care of animals, and it's a lot of hard work. And like, I stopped. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here volunteering? I need an attorney. Like, I have to take care of this right now. He expects me home in like a week.
Yeah.
And everything unraveled. I found an attorney in Tennessee while I was in Florida last minute who rushed everything. She got me a restraining order and a divorce decree. Meanwhile, he is sensing something is off.
He didn't sense anything prior when you were having the affair at all?
Well, here's the other thing. So my whole marriage, and I'm talking from the beginning, he would ask me if I was faithful. He would ask me if I was having an affair. So I was so used to being asked if I was having an affair for over a decade when I was never even looking or thinking about anyone else, that it would almost become like a joke. I'd be like, yeah, with every guy I see, like, just kind of like, and he would even laugh because this had gone on forever. So by the time B came into my life, I would just be like, I'm fucking everybody at work. Just stupid jokes like that, whatever. And I did straight also lie a couple times. He'd just be like, I just want to make sure. I'd be like, no. I let him meet him. I said, you come to work, you meet him. He's just a kitchen guy. Man, I learned to lie real quick, real well. And so all of the papers got served to him December 23rd. So like right before Christmas at like 7 p.m. at his work. Meanwhile, I had timed it all so I changed my phone number. I was living somewhere that he would never find me. Like, all this stuff happened really, really quick. I'm chain smoking cigarettes. I wasn't even a cigarette smoker. I'm like, the 24th that morning, he was in Naples looking for me. And so he called my dad. My dad said, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to go get a gun. I'm going to kill myself. My dad said, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And I never saw him again.
Wow.
And I didn't have to talk to him for 2 years because my attorney sucked. I mean, I love her, thank God, because she was an integral part. But at the end, like, nothing was getting done. I was like, just let me talk to him, because I was actually pregnant with my husband's kid. So I was like, we got things to do.
Right.
And so I ended up talking to him. The first thing he said to me was, I love you. I love you so much.
Ugh.
It's been 2 years I have not talked to this man. I am a different person, let me tell you.
Right.
And all I said was, it was never very good. It was just all you ever knew. He was like, okay. And when I tell you his whole attitude switched, it was done. It was over. And I got a bunch of money. It was lovely. It was so nice. Biggest check I've ever seen in my life. I lived off it for like 2 years. And just everything changed. But that was how I got away, and that was how life happened.
And the guy that saved you,
Tom. Love
Yeah.
Tom. Girl, if there is a single girl out there, you want a good man who is good looking and who is fun. He lives in Texas.
how did you not end up with Tom though?
Well, I met Jesse,
Okay.
and nobody can be Jesse, unfortunately. Like, Tom, when I jumped back with Tom was ready to marry me, and he wanted me to have his kids. I didn't want kids. I never wanted kids. And actually, first husband had convinced me that I hated kids, and then all kids were awful. And so I literally argued this. I'm talking from pulpits. I will never have kids. If I do decide I want a family, I will adopt. I am not putting more humans on this earth. It is overpopulated. There's too many problems. I'm not going to be part of the problem. Tom wanted me to have his kids. I was like, I really liked him. I have so much love for him. He is a wonderful person. But it was too much. It was too fast. And I mean, he is such a good friend. But where I was living, because I didn't stay living with him, I actually moved into the wildlife preserve. So I lived full time. Y'all, I left a house in Tennessee that I picked out myself to move into, like an 8x10 shed with a window unit, air AC thing, working on a farm. But I could hear lions and tigers like 100 feet outside my door that I had raised.
And
That's
somehow
pretty
that
cool.
was safer.
It was
Right,
safer.
that was safer.
Right.
It was safer. It was better. It
And
was more
preferred.
desirable. And it was also, I never wanted to live with my parents, because even though I loved them, I could never conform to what they needed for their perfect little world. Mm-hmm. And so it was also preferable to that. I would rather be covered in dirt with my 2 dogs also.
Right.
And I didn't pack like I was leaving.
Yeah.
I packed I was going on vacation, so I didn't
Right.
have any of the shit that was important to me. And so I met Jesse there, and I remember saying to the owners, being like, who's that guy? Because he caught my eye. And they're like, oh, he was in trouble. He was on community service hours. He was a pothead. He was a good old boy out there mudding and stuff. And I remember my first husband used to tell me that I liked bougie. And I was like, I don't feel like I like bougie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in bougie at the moment, and it's okay. Who doesn't like a fucking pedicure?
Right.
But I mean, like, that's not me. So it's funny, because if he could see where I lived, it was amazing. But so all of a sudden, here comes pot boy. He's in some trouble, all this other stuff. But he has got something about him, let me tell you. And we just connected. And we were friends first, which I've never been friends with anybody first. So that was fun. Like, we actually just spent platonic time hanging out, going to the movies, farting around at the farm, like stuff like that. And I mean, within a few months, I was madly in love with him. You guys, I said I love you during sex on accident. It was like our second or third time having sex. Meanwhile, boyfriend Tom, love him, good guy. Anybody's available. Because he's so great. He thinks that I'm with him, but he knows, and he's not stupid. He is not stupid. He understands what I came out of. He knows, because I'm telling him, hey, I'm hanging out with my new friend Jesse. He was not stupid. He understood what was happening. But here I am in Jesse's bed, and in a trailer in his mom's backyard with no plumbing, with rats, with an extension cord that ran the laptop we could watch movies on. So, like, when you talk about living in bum, still preferable to living with my parents or my first husband. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I love you. Because I grabbed my mouth, and he was like, I really, really, really care for you. I was like, that's fine. You don't have to say it. It was an accident, whatever. And I actually started telling him, like, I was like, because I could see him, because I can see people. So I was like, I love you. You don't have to tell me about it. You'll get there eventually. It's fine. You're having your own process. It's okay. Meanwhile, Tom, dream guy who's available, he bought me annual passes for Disney because it's one of my favorite things. He took me on a dream 5-star vacation to Aruba.
Wow.
I mean, $100 steaks every night, like the beach.
What's this guy's number? Shout him out, you know? There's somebody out there for him. He sounds like
his name's Thomas. He lives in Texas, and he is a prize. Like, he really
she
is.
gave his name and location.
Because
so
I'm telling
cute.
you, because he's different though. Like, he's another one though. He's like, he likes anime, he likes weird stuff, he likes horror, like him and his son. Like, and he builds. He's very crafty. He's an engineer. He like did makeup artist. Like, he was different. And so, but he took me on all these amazing vacations. Then you guys, and this is in 6 months. In 6 months. He drops the passes for that. He takes me to Aruba, and then he takes me on my other dream vacation for my birthday, which was to EDC, which is Electric Daisy Carnival in Las Vegas with 200,000 people. And it is a dream come true. And I mean, just loving me and spoiling me and letting me be my freak flag and like, but being my bodyguard. Cause I'm like, never been really allowed out, right? And I'm wearing this hoochie outfit, dancing. He's just stand there, watch whatever you need, whatever you want, and have a good time. And ran around Vegas and all this stuff. We went to all these shows.
So did you break this poor man's heart when you did not end up with him?
Kind of.
No, Tom.
But what happened was, it was about a week or two after that trip. He showed up unexpectedly at the farm where I was. And I was actually texting with Jesse. And Tom walks in and he goes, "We got to talk about Jesse." I'm like, "I know." He's like, "You can't." I'm like, "I can't walk away from Jesse." And Tom, being the beautiful soul that he is, said, "Okay, I understand. Let it be, whatever. But when it's done, it's done. Meaning, I will take you back. Whenever the time is, go do what you need to do. Go be free. But whenever it's over and you want to come back to me, it needs to be legit." Because he was really he wanted his family and his life and all these things. And I said, "Okay, understood." That was the end of June 2015. Meanwhile, because of everything that has happened, I have unraveled. I am working with the women's shelter, with an advocate, but I'm not in proper counseling, and I'm on drugs, and I am addicted to Percocet, and I am stealing it. And like because everything I thought I knew about my life, I didn't know I was sexually abused until I left him. I was like 4 weeks after I hadn't seen first husband in like 4 weeks, and I looked at my mom and I go, "Oh my God, did you know I was sexually abused?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What? I didn't? How did I not know?"
I'm married. How can I be sexually
Because I was
abused?
always told you can't rape.
Right.
It can't be rape if it's your husband.
Right.
I was like, I spent my entire life saying, "No, I don't want to have sex." And then going to counseling and having therapists tell me, you need to find a happy medium, and having calendars to mark, did I have sex 4 or 5 times this week like he wants?
What?
Oh, dear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was bad. It was fucking bad. So I was unraveling, and I'm working 100 hours a week outside in the hot sun. I'm having seizures because I'm not taking care of myself. I'm taking Adderall. I'm eating sugar.
What was your first exposure to drugs?
I have had back issues, and so it was doctors.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Makes
that's-
The
sense.
so
doctors put me
typical.
on that stuff. And honestly, today I don't have those issues because I'm a healer, and I really believe I've healed myself.
Yeah.
Because I had the MRIs and all the stuff, and when I did shots, and when they were like, the next thing is your option is surgery, it was like, no. No. And so I don't even have those issues anymore that landed me there. But trying to stop it, like the medicine and everything, and emotionally I'm unraveling.
How old were you when you first got on the meds?
Because of everything that happened, specifically the pain pills was probably my late 20s, but like being in that marriage and him telling me everything was wrong with me, they put me on all the antidepressants. I was on the Klonopin, and I was the Xanax, and like Prozac and the Paxil and all. Everybody's always, I was even trying to fix myself too, right? Because everybody's telling me it's just me. My parents are telling me I need more Jesus. My husband is telling me I just need to be obedient and be what he wants. Nobody listens to me, and everybody tells me I'm wrong.
Right.
So of course I'm going to take the medicine because you know? But so I was 31 or 32 when Tom and I kind of separated. My personal life rock bottom happened. I went to Jesse's house, which wasn't far from the farm where I lived, and it's hot sun. I don't eat all this stuff. I get in my car. I had the most beautiful Mini Cooper. It was lovely. I loved this car, and I had just paid it off 6 months ago. Paid in full, clear. It was my lovely car. I drove to the end of his street. I don't remember what happened, but I had a seizure while driving, and I drove into oncoming traffic. I have bits and pieces of remembering the ambulance, people getting me into the ambulance, whatever happened. Also, first husband had just canceled my car insurance, which goes against the divorce stuff because the divorce was pending. But there's no fucking response. Like, there was nothing I could do about it. So I was an uninsured motorist for all of 2 weeks. I lost my license, all sorts of stuff. So I ended up at the hospital. I had a broken foot, shattered fifth metatarsal. We didn't even know that until they asked me to get up for an x-ray, and I couldn't walk. And Jesse is just an angel. Like, he's not perfect, but he's an angel. Because we had only known each other about 6 months. And he finds me in this hospital because I see him walking by. I didn't tell him where I was. I remember calling him and saying, I got in an accident. He's like, you left like an hour ago. I'm like, I'm in an accident. I never told him where I was going, whatever. I don't even know if I stayed on the phone. And he even told me, you did not tell. I just figured you went there, and I just walked around until I found you. And so there he was, and he showed up, and he stayed with me at the hospital, and he helped me through all of my shit. Makes me sad. So I get out, crutches, I'd have surgery, all that stuff, taking all the pain pills. And actually, because I wasn't stealing pills the whole time. Actually, like that's like my worst villain move, because I'm in the place with people whom I love who are helping me.
Yeah.
And I'm unraveling. And so I end up stealing medication from the people that live there. I got caught. I really believe that I wanted to get caught. Kicked out. Called Tom, not Jesse, because Tom had a truck, to come and unload me, move all my stuff back to my parents' house, screaming at my parents, all this stuff, and realizing, okay, I need to go to rehab. Didn't see that in my life, but I need real help. And so luckily I still had insurance, and I managed to find a wonderful, wonderful rehab on the other coast, like quality, like good food, good, like it was so nice. And I ended up getting to go for 45 days, and Jesse drove me there. Like, that man carried me because I couldn't walk in and out of his trailer with no running water. I peed in a bucket, but it was better than living with the first husband or with my parents. I mean, I did all sorts of wild camping shit that I did not necessarily see in my life, but that just makes you stronger. And we would sleep on a twin bed with my 2 little dogs, his giant dog, all of us on a twin, and you could hear the rats on the other side of the wall. And we were just like, it's fine.
It's love.
It's fine. It's
good. We're in love.
It's all great. Everything's great. And so I went to rehab, and it was really transformational, because I told myself, I was like, I'm going to do this once. And I went in there pissed off at God. Mm-hmm. And they want to talk about God. It doesn't have to be a specific, but they're like, you got to have a higher power. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, fuck all the higher powers, because they have failed me. Because my dog died, you guys. Seriously.
Right.
I was like, so all of it is, and look at what happened, and blah, 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 blah. And so I had to start making up with religion, spirituality, everything that I knew, because I didn't know that you could practice faith any other way. Everything I had been told was, you're got heaven or hell on the line, so it's all or nothing. Yeah. And if you only kind of what we would call like a Christmas Christian, or like a half-ass, like they weren't good enough, and it was like looked down on.
Right. So there's no, if you diverge from the path in any way, it's straight to hell. Yeah.
It's so I had to sort of go through that. And while I was in rehab, I was there like 2 weeks. So I'm really clear for the first time in forever. And my body is like, oh, we want to have Jesse's kids. It was like my ovaries were like, I'm like, well, what about Tom? He would also, we want to have Jesse's kids. I was like, okay. And so Jesse dropped me off at rehab. Jesse picked me up from rehab. I went, did all the programs. He let me, he helped me with money. He helped me with the cars and all the other stuff. And like, we ended up building a life together.
Yeah.
Little by little, heartache after heartache, our own shit, because I had to completely rebuild myself. Meanwhile, love him, good man, kind of a grown-up child who's never really had to be a grown-up and certainly doesn't understand anything about emotional healing and stuff like that, and has been in trouble. I always tell him I'm his good luck charm, because when I met him, nobody in my personal life has ever been arrested or in that sort of legal trouble. It was new to me. Meanwhile, he had been arrested like 20 times for fighting and marijuana, stupid shit, just being lost in life, right?
Yeah.
And being in the wrong place and the wrong people. And his last trouble was a month before we kissed. And then from that point up until last year, because some stuff happened, I would always tell him, you see that? I'm your miracle. Look who hasn't been arrested or in trouble since the day I walked into your life. And I laugh about it but I don't necessarily know if he always gets it.
Right.
And now, that kind of brings us up to here.
Yeah.
So we fast forward to when I turned 40, it was like I had a great spiritual awakening, because even in the time from me kind of healing and stuff, like Jesse never knew me as a religious person.
Right.
Like I wasn't going to church. I wasn't doing nothing. I was learning and exploring stuff on my own, watching a lot of deconstructing Christianity videos on TikTok. But when I turned 40, it was literally like a giant wake up call, like a light switch went off. And I was like, holy shit, who is driving this bus? What the fuck is going on with my life? Okay, let's get this shit in order, because I was born with a purpose. Like I knew I came to earth. Like when I was little, I knew I was gonna be a writer, I could be a speaker, all this other crazy shit. And it was like all of a sudden everything came on, and I had shut down my gifts consciously for a season of my life. And they all came back. And so when I realized that, I was living with my parents, my 2 special needs kids, and my husband, all in my parents' house, because where we had been living, the rent went up too high. We loved where we were. We were there for 3.5 years, but we had moved in to save some money. I ended up kicking out my husband because we were not getting along and there were issues and I wasn't feeling respected.
And this was Jesse. When did you and Jesse get married?
We have been together 9 years. We have been married 3 or 4, but we have the 2 kids. We have a 6-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. I kicked out Jesse because I said, listen, I don't like the way you treat me. That was the basis. I don't like the way you talk to me. All you do is tell me I'm wrong. You sound just like my first husband. GTFO. Get the fuck out. But I loved Jesse. The difference was I didn't love my first husband. It was so great. Like I didn't love him for a long time. Jesse, I've never not loved. It could be the end of the world and I still love that man. So it was very, very different and it was a lot harder. Also, he doesn't like to let go. So I managed to get him out. I'm looking at my parents like, I love you guys. I cannot live in this house of old people perfection, and like my kids are insane and special needs. We had to build safety walls. We had to build a gate for my baby, and he literally would shake it till he break it. He's nonverbal autistic, and he is a monster. I love him. He's amazing. He's got a punch like he was a boxer or a gladiator in a first life. Like he's got some stuff. Yeah. And he's telepathic. And if nobody has ever heard of the telepathy tapes, they're exploring autism and telepathy, and it's fucking real.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
And so, so that summer, I had spent years curious about psychedelics. I had never tried them, but nobody knew, but I was researching this shit. I had found a place where I found a supplier, I believed. I found some guidance, I believe. I kept looking for someone in real life to like sit with me and be like, this is what I did. And I couldn't find a person.
Right.
So I was like, fuck it. I ordered some stuff and I said, I'm going to microdose. And I started doing trauma therapy through the women's shelter, but like real trauma therapy. Now, this is another thing I didn't even talk about. But when we had the church growing up, my dad is a trauma counselor. They don't call it that. They call it a deliverance minister, but it's the same shit. So I was trained, unbeknownst to me, in really serious trauma therapy at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years. For years, I even went through a training program it's a Christian program called Theophostic, but it's trauma therapy. It blows my mind that this is stuff that I do today now. But so I worked with a therapist who was amazing, and I was microdosing on schedule. You don't feel anything when you microdose. I wasn't like the most I'd be like, oh, clouds are pretty. That was it. But I noticed my mood starting to shift. Like it was like my whole vibration. It was like everything was just getting a little bit better and a little bit lighter. And I was starting to feel like the old me come back. Jesse moved out in August. This would be 2023. And I'm looking at my parents. I'm trying to find anywhere else to go live. And, just me and I said, I'll live in a closet with my kids. I don't care. And do you know that what prompted all of that was when I woke up and it was like, what am I going to do? It was like, I want to be a nicer, kinder mom. I was like, okay, then we need to heal.
Yeah.
I don't want to. My kids are a lot. I know, because I was a lot. I remember my parents telling me that I talked constantly and I was so much, and they don't know what to do, so they're just like, go away, or what's the matter with you, the way that they would speak. And I could hear this shit coming out of me. I was like, okay, I need help. That's why I did the therapy, the psychedelics. And in October, I found a house in the same community where we had lived. That was because it's an RV community, so they're trailers, but they're really nice. And I looked at my mom, like almost gonna cry. I was like, can I borrow $40,000? My parents are not rich, you guys, at all. But when I tell you that all of the stars aligned, that they just so happened to have that money in the bank, that if I had asked them probably even a year before that would have never happened.
Right.
And my mom was like, well, we can talk about it. And my dad went and looked at it with me, and they bought me the house. And it is like a massive miracle, considering how much different we are and how we don't. And I'm like, I love you guys, but I cannot live in your house. But they're like, here's a house, free and clear, nothing, no responsibility. So I moved into that house. Meanwhile, Jesse is mad, sad, drowning his sorrows and alcoholism and having his own issues. And I'm paying for a divorce attorney, but I've got my house. I went into credit card debt for the first time in my life. And when I looked at the moments that was happening, I was like, this is what credit card debt is made for. I had never had it. This is when we're going to run it. I'm not worried about it. I had to put tens of thousands of dollars into the home to actually build my kids their own bedroom. And this house, even the number is E143. Do you remember when we had pagers? 143. Oh, does anybody remember what it meant? I love you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. I actually skipped that part of life. I never had a pager.
Oh,
my
you
parents
missed out.
wouldn't buy one for me. I
You
couldn't
guys
afford
missed
it.
out. I had some dinky little. I didn't have it for long.
My
but I
sister
did.
had one, but I wasn't allowed to have one.
My husband had one, and
'cause-
I think that's that was like a generation, kids that were like a few years older than us, which I think you're a few years older than us. I'm 38, going to be 39, and she's 39.
41.
My husband's 42. He had a pager.
My
I had a
sister's 40, and she had one.
I had a phone in my room too.
I did too. I had a phone in my room,
Yep.
but my sister had a job. Blockbuster was weird back then. They would let kids just manage. She's 16 and she's managing the Blockbuster, so she had money, and I had Wendy's money, but I would spend it on my nails and whatever.
I had my pay for my car and my car insurance and my
same.
gas, and
But
that's
I
the
didn't
only
get
thing
it.
it would cover.
Yeah, I didn't get a pager. My parents wouldn't buy one for me.
Nope, me
funny.
neither.
But so I got the house. I got it all
143.
fixed up, decorated. It's so me, and it's the first time, because the other thing was with the first husband, I wasn't allowed to decorate or do anything. So the only place that was customized mine was my closet. I'm not kidding, because I like bright colors. So if you come to my house today, every wall is a different color, and none of my drapes match. They're fun. It's a kid's house. I got little kids, and so I got my house, and I was doing the therapy, and then I started doing the macro dose trips. Now, when I tell you that psychedelics are sacred, they are holy. I never did this shit for fun, for recreation. And I wanted a trip sitter, but I couldn't find one. And so the day finally came where I was like, fuck it. I watched every documentary. I got the message that the people were saying, set and setting. Are you somewhere where you feel safe? Is your mind at peace? And I was like, okay, I love my house. I locked it all up. I took my psychedelics to see what happened. and it is transformational. There's almost no words. So I spaced out my trips because I actually was using it like a regiment, that I was going off the program of the church I joined out of the psychedelic church I joined out of California, but also using my own little intuition plus using therapy. So like there was a day where I spent like 3 hours crying in trauma therapy. That night I was like, this seems like a good day to take some psychedelics. And I would cry. And it was like the divine feminine, because if you look at God, what we call God, there are many facets of God. Even if you are just a Christian and you go by the Bible, God is love. Well, God is also a jealous God. That's what the word says. God is a God of peace and understanding, wisdom. There's all sorts of flavors of God. Vengeful. So I had the divine feminine, which would be the gentler version of that pure love energy. Just absolve pain and sorrow and heartache and show me and teach me about what is happening, because I would feel like within my body, like if you could imagine like a little white, like if you think of the Holy Spirit, because I know a lot of people are Christians, and you'd be like, if it's a little white circle and it's sitting on my shoulder, but then it's moving all throughout my body and it's just like fixing my energy. And I could feel pops, I could feel opening, and I could feel like all of this stuff, which later since I'm a healer, like I understand now it's your etheric body. We are energetic people. We are energy. It's like your nervous system. That is you more than anything you see on the outside. And you can work with your energy and you can move it and you can manipulate all sorts of cool stuff. And so spirit taught me this. And because I was raised around spiritual warfare, I knew what to look out for the dark. People would ask about, demons, darkness, scary, or like tricksters and all this other stuff. I had the tools I needed to be aware on a level that probably most people don't necessarily start with, right? And so when I had my third mushroom trip, and I spaced them out about 3 or 4 weeks apart, that third one was a particular strain called Blue Meanies. I saw everything everywhere all at once. It's like if you understand everything, like the whole universe, like the air was alive and I could see it. And I had I had been doing it even by that third time, that I could see patterns. The medicine is alive. And if you work with it, then it will teach you. But you cannot resist, you cannot control. And if you got fear, you got to face it, because you cannot. That's when people have bad trips. I've had those too. I understand. But so I could see everything. I could feel everything. And I remember sitting on my floor in awe, just being like, wow. And the question came to my mind, what do you want to do next? And I said, I got to wake up Jesse. We got to heal. And I even wrote it. I couldn't even see straight. I wrote it on a piece of paper. It's somewhere in my house, and it just says like, wake up, heal, or wake up Jesse, heal. And the next day he actually came over and we started talking about psychedelics, and we started a path to reconciliation. It might have been too soon, because what happened was, while I had already been many months on my healing journey, he was broken and he was hiding his alcoholism that I didn't know how bad it was. His dad had also passed within this time, like a couple years before. So there's a lot going on from his end too that I wasn't even aware of. And so his life actually began to, from the moment I let him move back into our house, his life crashed and burned. His 2024, I started with a prayer for myself of, I want clarity and strength and intuition. By the end of 2024, I knew exactly who I was, where I was going, what I was doing, and I was working as a professional psychic and healer. So I got everything I asked for. Poor Jesse got rehab, got crisis unit, got DUI, got a lot of things, because I would push him away and say, I am not staying with you. If you're going to treat me like that, you're going to repeat those patterns. I am doing something with my life. I know who I want to be. I love you, but I will not let you treat me like this. And for the first time in my life, I really had to stand up in my boundaries to the person I love.
Good for you.
And thank you, because it's really fucking hard.
Yes, it is.
And so there was a lot of back and forth. And in May, just last May, so almost a year ago, because we were living together, I actually filed for divorce because there was a whole nother shit show of drama in my life with him. I was like, this is it. You're getting out. But I told him, since we lived in an RV park, I wanted him to bring his trailer and put it in the park because I wanted them to be close. And I wanted my kids close because they're little.
Yeah.
And so he did. He moved the trailer there. And I'm like, angry wife, you know, gonna save the world. And I'm angry and all this stuff. I filed for divorce, all this shit. And 2, 3, 4 weeks later, my friend commits suicide. And I'm super, super involved in that. And during the season where Jesse and I separated, my best friend, Kari, her husband, Jeff, stepped in. We would laugh and say, rent a husband. He moved all my furniture. He put together the beds. He hung the TVs. He did my car maintenance because he was a mechanic. So he came to my rescue for the guy stuff over and over and over, and needed nothing. I would throw him a couple bucks if I had it, but other than that, like, he didn't listen to me bullshit with my drama. He didn't care what. He was just there to work. He was there. My kids bothering him, touching his tools, all this shit. I've got these videos, these pictures of him hanging my TV with my like little guy like under his legs. Like, it's so sweet. And he had reached out randomly in the middle of the night one night, and I would wake up often in the middle, and he was like, "Are you up? I'm sorry to bother you." It was like 1:30. He wanted to commit suicide. And I talked him out of it. And we talked through all of the heart to heart and the heavy, which is where I live. That's usually if I meet a stranger on the road, by the end of the conversation, that's what we're talking about. And, you know, before that, the time before that, my brother had actually talked him out of it. So last June, Kari and him were not getting along. It was not a good relationship. They should have split years ago. They had kids and stuff. And she had actually been at my house printing divorce papers, all this stuff. And she calls me and she's like, I don't know where he is. I feel like he's dead. I know he's dead. I don't know where he is. Like, hold on, calm down. That was on a Sunday. That was Father's Day, actually. And Monday morning she calls me again. She's like, I know he is dead. And I always had issues with like kid care. So like I'm attached to my kids, and it just so happened my mother-in-law was there. I had somewhere to go, so I had a babysitter. And I was like, I'm just going to leave. I happen to be going in that direction. I'm going to run by his work, because she was like, I feel like he is at work and they won't answer the phone. And so I drove by to his work, and it was a full-on crime scene with the medical examiner, hearse, and everything there. I even walked up to there and talked to somebody. But when I tell you that my brain would not let me see reality, it was like invisible walls. This is the only time really that I know that I've had shock. Mm-hmm. It was like walls came up. We will not see reality. They're looking for him. And I even sent a picture. I have a picture of it to Kari. And I was like, she's like, he's dead. He's dead. I'm like, no, maybe that caution tape is always there, because maybe it's how they keep the people out of the shop. And no, he had, he was a mechanic, so he had done the carbon monoxide poisoning. Mm-hmm. And so I said, hold on, we still didn't know officially. She had actually called the 911 or to report missing persons. They didn't ask her his name. She realized it afterwards. They already fucking knew, because they already had people there.
Wow.
So, and I was there and he was there. All of this. And realizing that I have to find him, that all of a sudden I became overwhelmed with this insane, like insatiable, I have to find Jeff. I went to the psychic shop that I loved. We did some weird woo-woo things. They didn't help at all. I searched. I kept feeling pulled to the shop. But I was like, I was just there. He's not there. And after about an hour of driving all over town looking in, because he had alcohol problems and stuff, I was looking in parking lots and shit. I call her back. I'm like, I can't find him. She's like, they just left. He's gone. I said, I'm coming. And so I went to her house and stayed with her through all of this. And he was so helpful, not just to me. He was so helpful. There were so many people at his funeral. Like, he was so helpful, but ultimately he killed himself over shame and guilt. He could not face his own wrongs, the things he had done that he shouldn't have done. And he really did fuck over his wife. Like 3 days later, their electricity went out. Like he didn't tell her that they were about to lose their house. That they had been renting the same place for 7 years. The guy wanted to sell it. And she had like 45 days. She had no idea. Their cell phone stopped working. There was no money. There was so much wrong done by him that was totally avoidable. But he was a man who couldn't talk about his feelings and couldn't admit he was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I basically said to my husband, I'm going to stay with her. Will you stay at our house? Because I had kicked him out again.
Right.
You stay with the kids. I'm going to stay there, and we'll worry about our stuff later. And so I spent as much time. That was my introduction. I'm a death doula also. Empathy is not just a crutch for people to say, I feel everything. No, empathy is a skill and a talent just like anything else, and you can use it as a gift.
Yeah.
So like my role with them was literally sitting with her and her kids and like helping them pull and process pain and getting, because there's kids. He left his 13-year-old and his 18-year-old. They're now 14 and 19. And like I'm the one, not grandma, grandpa, and other people. Like I was there all the time. I was sleeping there. Like, let's talk about the heart. Isn't this sucks? How do we, and like getting them to feel, and then like helping her with the funeral stuff. And it was wild because I was like, dude, I stopped you and you helped me. And then like you just ditched. Like,
well, that just shows how deep depression can be.
Oh yeah.
For him, you know,
for so many people.
Yeah. And so many times it has to do with money. Like
well, he was spending his money on drugs too. He was buying cocaine. He was all and all sorts of shit.
But the shame and the guilt of everything he's been doing, and he knew that his wife was not going to have a home or a cell phone or an electricity on. He knew that it had to be a hole he didn't think he could climb out of.
It was, and he left her a video that's very long, and he did confess, and he put it all out there, and he unburdened. But what was crazy is that her life has been drastically better since he's gone. When I tell you that the whole community, I set up a GoFundMe for her because she was like, maybe I can raise enough money to get a down payment, try to buy this. And like she works as like a shop girl at Mickelson's Bakery, who, by the way, is amazing. They rallied behind her and supported her like so much. But we were able to raise her over $50,000.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
Like, I'm talking big, big miracles. Every need that she had was met. Strangers just helping her. And she's all of a sudden, and you have to have dark humor when you deal with these sort of things, because it was months later and we're like, well, you don't have a husband, but you got a financial accountant and a mortgage broker. Like, we would try to find the funny and the laugh.
Yeah, you got to. We talk about that a lot.
And there was so many, there's so many things that happened with that. And so, I rode that whole wave with her and ended up then what happened with my husband when we talk about psychedelics. Jesse's experience with psychedelics is different than mine because he did that stuff as a kid. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, around the hurricanes in August-ish this year, he decided like 8 a.m. wake up and take an insane amount of very strong psychedelics, like twice what I would normally take.
Right.
And then was in a good mood and said, why don't you bring the kids over? I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave them there, but we'll come say hi. When you say a day where none of these things that happened should have happened, and then the end result was a miracle. Jesse had a seizure at my feet. He doesn't have seizures. He's not. It was like he was dying. And like, I'm trying to call 911. And psychedelics don't cause seizures.
Right.
It's not a thing. This was an energy convergence. Mm-hmm. And I got my kids out of there. Luke's older. He's laughing, thinks it's funny, doesn't understand. I'm like, glad you don't understand. When I tell you God has always protected my kids, they don't see anything. I'm like, thank you, everybody. And so he had this whole thing. He got up. He was okay. Another friend sat with him. And it was like he was healed. He has never fought with his alcoholism since that day. The way he used to be, like a lot of alcohol, you look in the fridge and you're craving. It's like addiction is addiction. Shit's hard. And I've told him multiple times, I'm like, Jesse, you had a miracle. that shit should have killed you.
Yeah.
And like, it was wild.
Well,
And
sometimes psychedelics, I've heard that they can like reset a lot of things for people.
that is exactly what happened. It was like a complete reset. And
That's awesome.
I had spent almost like 12 months, like a year to the date, like with this inner like eject, he's hurting me, eject.
Right.
It was all gone after that. It wasn't but like a couple weeks later, I was like, you know, why don't you come stay with us for the hurricanes? Why don't you, you know, and we actually kept that second trailer for a while, but like we're back together. We're one day at a time. I've heard shit come out of his mouth now, talking about healing, talking about like dealing with your own emotions, talking about like wise stuff. And I am like,
Good.
who is this man that is talking like this and like telling his other friends and being able to see things from a different perspective? And I'm like, wow, it's like I'm watching rebirth happen right before. And I watched it with Kari too. I watched her crash and burn and then like rise like a phoenix. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, watching people transform their lives, take the shit. And that is when we talk about healing and we talk about energy.
And that's what happened to you too.
And the same, I guess. I don't always see it like, but you're right. You're absolutely right. That's what happens when you're dealing with real trauma and healing. There's a phrase called light workers, and it's basically people who know that they're meant to be here for a purpose. They're meant to be here to spark joy, spark light, inspire others. And there's no right or wrong way. Like, I coach people. I do one-on-ones. I do all sorts of interesting little tricks in my bag. And the whole goal is to find the heavy, find the hurt, heal it, and find what sparks joy. What does your soul want to do? What did you come here to do? What's your purpose? Because a lot of people like don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Let's find it. And there, when you get onto that life path where all of a sudden you're respecting yourself, you're loving yourself, you're deconstructing your old beliefs. You have to crumble the old, and that's really hard. People don't want to do that.
Right.
You like I had to go be a whore to really a slut,
Right.
whatever,
That was your path.
to find my life.
Right.
Like I had to break all my own rules. I'm not saying that everybody should do that. I'm just saying
Right.
I had to do the things I thought I would never do. And so many times when people go through that rediscovery of who they are, what they're meant to be doing, you have to look at things you've never looked at before, and you have to look at things differently. And so it's amazing now that I sit with people. I healed a guy at the park yesterday. I healed a complete stranger. It was wild. I went to the park to paint and to do my own thing. He saw my name on my car because it's got my website. He's like, "What's Awkward Sinner?" I said, "Look it up." That's all I said. It wasn't even very friendly. He apparently sat and watched one of my videos for like 13 minutes, and he walked up to me and he goes, "Hey, can you help me with my alcoholism?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he just starts talking, and I said, "Well, I got like 10 minutes. Let's sit. I'll show you a little meditation." And we just did a basic earth-based meditation. He starts raving afterwards. "I can breathe." I'm like, "I didn't know you couldn't breathe." Apparently he had just gotten out of the hospital. He was sick. He was like, my lungs, all this stuff. And he is going on and on and on. I actually just put some on TikTok because I'm not good with social media, but I tried to clip it because I said, "Can I record this?" Because I always forget to get testimonials. And like, he's like, "This is amazing." It's me. But I see this stuff all the time. And then when you can show them that miracles are real and they happen every day, why the fuck can't it be for you?
Right.
Why can I get a miracle and you can't? I don't believe that. I have seen so many things that I really do believe that all shapes and sizes of miracles are available and happen. And you just sometimes got to think a little different, try something different, or at the very least have an open mind.
That was beautiful.
How do people find you?
Yeah, you mentioned it just there. So how can
my
people find you?
website is Awkward Sinner. That is the best place to find me. It's got my phone number. I write a blog about interesting things. Once in a while, I post videos through my YouTube. And then I have a Facebook page called Awkward Sinner. Those are the two best ways.
That's great.
Yeah, text me, call me. Yeah.
Girl, you have an incredible story.
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Thank you
coming
for
in.
sharing.
This is so exciting. So I feel so blessed. I feel like it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this, especially because you guys only started this a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I only looked it up for a few minutes, I'm like, this has got good juice behind it. Like
Aw.
they're doing something. And so like,
Thank you.
I'm really happy to be a part of it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh,
We
thank
love
you so
having you.
much. Yeah, this was great.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're so grateful that you joined us today. If this story spoke to you, share it with someone who might need it too. You can find us at ican'tevenimagine.com or connect with us on Facebook at ican'tevenimagine-a podcast for moms or Instagram at ICEI_podcast.
And don't forget, there's purpose in your path, even if you can't see it yet.